Hello, my class. So we have looked at the allegory of the cave and how that is a 2,400-year-old version of the Dunning-Kruger effect, the backfire effect, the Lake Wobegon effect, and this idea of a false balance. A false balance is where there aren't actually two equal sides to an issue. There might be some back and forth and debate on the extremes of either banning all guns or making sure everyone, including toddlers, have automatic rifles, right? Probably the answer is actually somewhere in the middle. Might be closer to one side or the other, but the answer is in the middle on that one. However, a false balance would be like some people say that the Earth is like a flat disk. This is insane. The world is more of a ball or a sphere. Technically, it's an oblique spheroid, which just means it's not quite a perfectly round ball. So you might have a flat earther and a oblique spheroid earther. Those are not two equal points of view where the answer is actually somewhere in the middle, that it's not a flat disk, maybe it's more like a lump of mashed potatoes. Like, that's clearly just not correct, right? One person actually has a view based in reality that's pretty close to reality, and the other person is living in the cave, right? The allegory of the cave. Now, unfortunately, in reality, we meet lots of people who have different points of view from us, and they think we're in the cave, and we think they're in the cave. Probably one person is more in the cave than the other. More often than not, someone is actually closer to reality than the other person. But as Plato pointed out in his story of this cave, it's deeply painful to be removed from the cave and forced to look at something in bright light. So, this presentation is on this idea of definitions based on reality. So I have a couple of examples that, in person in class, we'd do a few of these, but on a video where you're not able to talk back and forth with me, I'm not going to do all of the examples because I think there's too much room for people to misunderstand me, and at the time I'm recording this video, I didn't have a very good day, and people are deeply misunderstanding how and why I teach the way I do. If I'd recorded this video 2 days ago, probably would have given you all of the examples. If you want more examples, feel welcome to email me and or call me, and we can talk these out, just because to me they're fascinating things. But just over the internet, people are going to think I'm pushing some agenda that I'm not pushing. I'm just giving facts. So I guess that is an agenda. I like facts. All right, so how we define words should be based on a reflection of reality. Heck, I just gave you my opinion on how I think we should define words. So let's take a look at this. We're going to look at marijuana here. Why are we looking at marijuana? Not because I'm advocating for one way or the other on marijuana. And there are a couple of issues on this year's ballot about marijuana, so I thought it was a current issue. That's one reason we're doing this. The second one is marijuana gets people's attention. So if I have students interested and engaged, that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned when I'm trying to teach a bigger concept that is not really even about marijuana. And the third thing is it's a bit controversial, so then we might actually have some discussion in class. If I were to just try and teach this point without an example that's interesting and engaging, people would fall asleep. So here we go. The Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA, a branch of the federal government, has schedules different drugs. That doesn't mean they sign them up to be used at different times, but they have them listed in certain schedules, and so we're going to take a look at Schedule 1 drugs. Schedule 1. Here's their definition. The drug or other substance has a high potential for abuse, which means people are going to use it wrongly, a whole bunch. Number 2. The drug or other substance has no currently accepted medical use in treatment in the United States. Number 3. There's a lack of accepted safety for use of the drug or other substance under medical supervision. So basically they're saying in the United States right now there's no currently accepted medical use that we know of, and even if there were some medical use, we don't have an accepted standard for safely using this with any type of medical supervision. And here are some examples of Schedule 1 substances. Heroin, gamma-hydroxybutyric acid, also known as GHB, lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD, or acid, marijuana, and methaqualone. Interestingly, methamphetamine is on the Schedule 2 drugs, which means that there is some currently accepted medical use for meth. So then I thought, okay, by that definition, alcohol, that sounds like it probably should be a Schedule 1 drug. High potential for abuse, but then we got into the medical use. Turns out there is a medical use for alcohol if you were to, for whatever reason, drink a bunch of antifreeze that has ethylene glycol in it. The antidote for overcoming that ethylene glycol poisoning is actually ethyl alcohol, or just like booze. But it seems like alcohol should require a prescription then. Maybe it should be a Schedule II drug or something like that, because it certainly has a high potential for abuse, highly addictive, and people don't do well with this when they're not medically supervised. Just to be clear, if you love your booze, I'm not saying that we need to take it away from you. We tried that with the 18th Amendment, and we got rid of it with the 21st. Prohibition did not work in this country. I'm just saying that if we're looking at the DEA's definitions, technically alcohol should be a scheduled drug there. How about nicotine that's in cigarettes? Maybe that should be a Schedule I drug. People abuse that a lot. How about accepted medical use in the United States? Well, turns out nicotine might actually be helpful for people with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and other similar things. Now, I'm not saying that if you have Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, you should start smoking cigarettes. Smoking cigarettes destroys your lungs. It's terrible. Do not smoke cigarettes at any age, ever. Now, I'm going to get sued by Big Tobacco. Also, don't chew tobacco. Nicotine seems like it should be on that list, that schedule with the DEA, and you should probably need a prescription for it, if we're being consistent with our definitions. But anyway, marijuana. Let's look at this drug that's FDA approved. Marinol. The generic name is dronabinol. It's used to treat nausea, vomiting caused by cancer chemotherapy. So people who are getting chemotherapy, they lose their appetite and they puke a lot. And Marinol is just synthetic THC. THC is the illegal ingredient in marijuana. So that's a little mind-bending that there's no currently accepted medical use for marijuana in the United States, yet with the FDA, not the DEA, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, has approved this drug Marinol, which is synthetic THC, to treat people who have cancer. And why does it work? Because THC gives people the munchies. So people who are losing a lot of weight and they're not hungry, they literally take some prescription weed and it makes them hungry, so they eat pizza or other food. Next, I looked at the Montana Department for Health and Human Services, and apparently there's a Montana medical marijuana program. I looked at California just for fun because they're a big state, and they have a medical marijuana program too. And they say in order to get a prescription for marijuana, you will need to be diagnosed with a serious medical condition. The diagnosis and your physician's recommendation that the use of marijuana is appropriate for you must be documented in your medical records. Just to review, Montana and California are states in the United States of America. And this map here shows us all of the states that allow some form of marijuana. As far as I can tell, we have 4 states that do not allow any use of marijuana. Most of our states allow some level of medical use of marijuana, and some allow people just to use marijuana for funsies. So just to review, from the Drug Enforcement Agency. Schedule I drug. Drug or other substance has a high potential for abuse. Sure, marijuana definitely has a high potential for abuse and misuse. The drug or other substance has no currently accepted medical use in the United States. Well, that's clearly false. Lots of states say that there are currently accepted medical uses, and those states are in the United States. Lack of accepted safety for the use of the drug or other substance under medical supervision. Well, if there's a doctor prescribing something to you, then it seems like you have some medical supervision. Interestingly, heroin is a Schedule I drug, but fentanyl, which is many, many times stronger than heroin, is actually a legal drug that you can have a prescription for in the United States. Clearly, Schedule I drugs from the DEA have some hypocrisy to them, where their definition doesn't match actual reality. And I don't think there's anyone who could make a rational argument that meth is safer than marijuana. And again, just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that you use marijuana. I'm definitely saying don't use meth. What I am doing is pointing out with facts that the DEA's definition of a Schedule I drug just doesn't hold up to reality. So what do we do when a definition doesn't match reality? We have lots of different approaches, and you can probably think some of those out. A lot of times we like to deny things. Other times we get angry then maybe we change. My question for you is, what should we do when we recognize that the definition we're using for a word or for a concept doesn't actually match reality? What should we do? Because here's the thing, as long as we continue to do research, the more new information we're going to find that upends, that turns over our worldview. And we're either going to, we can try and reject that information, or we can try to accept it and figure out a way to go forward and change our worldview so that it lines up with that new information. We've been pretty dumb in the past. When I say we, I mean we humans. When people have challenged widely held beliefs with facts, and it's super awkward when we ostracize these people, when we push them away for their facts. It's super awkward if we do that, and those people turn out to be right. For example, on February 13th, 1633, Italian philosopher, astronomer, and mathematician Galileo Galilei arrived in Rome to face charges of heresy for advocating Copernican theory, which holds that the Earth revolves around the sun. Galileo officially faced the Roman Inquisition in April of that same year and agreed to plead guilty in exchange for a lighter sentence. Put under house arrest indefinitely by Pope Urban VIII, Galileo spent the rest of his days in his villa in Arcetri near Florence, before dying on January 8, 1642. Galileo spent 9 years on house arrest for saying that the Earth goes around the sun, because up until that point, the Catholic Church had said, no, the sun is zipping around the Earth, that's what makes our days. And Galileo said, no, we go around the sun and the Earth is spinning, and that's what makes our days. Galileo was charged with a crime. At the time, it was a crime to go against what the church said. That's what heresy is. It's where you go against the church. In broader terms, heresy is where you go against commonly held beliefs. When you're faced with a definition that doesn't match reality, what do you do? And is what you actually do the same as what you should do? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.